Yes, you
Just,
have something to say? Oh, recording.
just a second. Yes, Prabhu. Let's start.
Perfect. Now that we are live streaming and the recording has started, Prabhu, my first question to you is, जैसे मैंने बात किया love. When you talk about love of Godhead being your natural intelligence, when you speak about love, there is attachment that comes, desires, expectations, and कई बार क्या होता है कि ये जब when you listen to all these terms and each one gone through his own experiences, कई बार आदमी बोलता है यार, you know, the worst thing that the man's worst enemy is expectations. किसी को किसी से expectation ही नहीं रखनी चाहिए, किसी को कुछ desires ही नहीं रखनी चाहिए. So of course, each to his own. They come from their own different space, but to attain perfection and peace, Prabhu, should we vacuum clean our desires and attachment to attain them? Is that where yoga gets us, or is that where yogic practices gets us? What's your take on this one?
Okay. Interesting question that desires are the cause of a lot of heartburn. Attachments are the cause of a lot of suffering. Expectations are a cause of a lot of disappointment. So let's throw these desires, attachments, and expectations out of the window. And I have nothing to do with desires. Na rahega baas, na bajegi bansuri. Kawat hai. Right? We go from one extreme to another extreme. And there are some spiritual paths which facilitate this kind of a frustrated mindset of a person who has had disappointment with desires, attachments, and expectations, which profess that giving up of all desires is the doorway, is the gateway to spiritual perfection. The cause of all problems is desire, and the solution to the problems is dumping of your desires. But then the desire to dump your desires is also a desire, right? So you can't get away with the word desire, however hard we try, because this this energy of desire is the energy of life. You can't separate life and desire. If you separate desire from a living being, what you are left with is a dead corpse, because dead corpses don't desire. And if they desire, that would be a horror movie, but we'll leave that to Steven Spielberg. But for matters of truth, just like you cannot separate heat and light from fire, you cannot separate desire from life force. So desire and attachment are the existential aspect of living beings. So we definitely can't eliminate desires, and that would be, we cannot eliminate attachment, because that would make our life, first of all, meaningless, boring, and then ultimately life itself won't exist. So therefore, we first of all, let's let this fact settle that we cannot do away with desires. We have to live with desires. Now the question is not about elimination of desires, but selection of desires. The question is not about rejection of desires, but alternate application of desires. So we are not eliminating desires, we are selecting the right kind of desires. uh, we are we are replacing the loudest desires with the deepest desires. There are two kinds of desires. The loudest desires, the desires, the shrill pitch of those desires of the mind and senses are creating a chaos in our life. So the bhakti path, the path of yoga doesn't give a call to, you know, to deny desires, but it says that replace desires. There are these loud desires, the desires of the mind and senses, and there's a deep desire, the desire of the soul. So the Bhakti path says replace these loud desires with the deep desires. And that's what replace these loud attachments with the deep attachments. Listen to the voice of the soul and replace the voice of the noise of the mind and senses. So that is the call for action which Krishna is giving us in the Gita in this verse, because we are starting the 7th chapter. So the first verse of the 7th chapter is quite a groundbreaking verse. It's a paradigm shift. What does Krishna say here? Maya sakta mana prartha yogam yunjan madashraya asamshayam samagram mam yatha gyasyasi tachrunu. So Krishna is saying, Mai asakta mana partha, apne man ko mujh mein asakt karo, O Parth Arjun. So now this is quite interesting and intriguing, because asakti, the word asakti is a dreaded word for generally yogis and jnanis, because for them asakti means for them asakti is something which they frown upon, colloquially, or stereotyped understanding of asakti is something which has to be frowned upon. But Krishna says, wait a minute, I am giving you a different type of asakti, a different kind of attachment. Mai asakta, become attached to me. Let those attachments, those worldly attachments, be replaced with the attachment to the Supreme Lord. And that requires some scrutiny. Why is Krishna recommending this asakti to the jiva? Because he understands the nature of the jiva whom he has created better than anyone else. Isn't it? Ask the manufacturer. When the machine is not working properly, what to do? Ask the manufacturer. The manufacturer is telling that, look, you cannot do away with desires. You cannot do away with attachments. Right now, I would ask all the participants to please do not think of the red-faced monkey. For God's sake, do not think of the red-faced monkey. What are you all thinking of? What are the first thoughts which crossed your mind?
All the red-faced monkeys. I could imagine.
Okay, so the red-faced monkeys are what all of us are thinking of. Someone is thinking of one monkey, or some are thinking of pura jhundi dikh raha hai, right? But what I told you was to not think of it. But then quite quite the opposite happens, right? But if I ask you to think of the white cow instead, I'm saying think of the white cow, not the red-faced monkey. Then you can think of the white cow. If I give you a replacement, then you can definitely steer your thoughts to a different direction. Right? Thoughtlessness is not a question. We cannot be thoughtless. We can direct our thoughts, as I said, we can direct our thoughts from the loudest desires to the deepest desires of the soul. And there's a science which is involved in this. So we say, Jai Kishan Prabhu, you said that with love, expectations, heartburns, ये सब जो चीजें आता है, then people feel यार ये सब इसमें problem ही है, इसमें पढ़ने का ही नहीं अपने को. Let me give up this desire altogether. It is said, love is blind, and even psychology proves that. The modern neuroscience has done experiments, and the University of London, they did one experiment. You know what? They examined the neural activity of people in love, whether maternal love or conjugal love, whether love of a mother or a father for a child. So them cuddling their child or being with their child, or a lover with their beloved, and they examined the neural patterns of these people. And it's interesting what they found. They found that their finding is that this human attachment employs a push-pull mechanism which deactivates networks used for critical thinking, critical social assessment, and negative emotions. तो जब व्यक्ति के सर में प्रेम का भूत सवार होता है, in colloquial language, तो फिर क्या होता है, उसका critical thinking बंद हो जाता है. The person's critical thinking stops once negative emotions are sent out of the window. No negative thinking about the object of love, no critical assessment. Otherwise, you won't be able to love them unconditionally. So what we see here is that that there is a scientific evidence for the saying that love is blind, because love makes you blind. Otherwise, you cannot love on the material platform, right? But on the spiritual platform, love is different. Attachment is different. On the material platform, love and attachment are binding and blinding. They bind you because that attachment sticks to you, and it restricts your freedom. And it is blinding because you cannot see facts which others can so easily see and say कि भाई तुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा है किसमें फंस रहा है तू. But that's the nature of material love and material attachment. But spiritual love and spiritual attachment is different. It is contrary. On the contrary, it is enlightening and emancipating. Like you have blinding love, you have enlightening love. Spiritual love is not blinding, it's enlightening. Spiritual love is not binding, it is emancipating. And this is what Krishna is talking of. Maya sakt manah partha yogam yunjan mad ashraya asamshayam samagramam yatha gyasyasi tachnu jnanam teham savigyanam pravakshami asheshata. Krishna is saying, Arjuna, situate yourself in this yoga of attachment to me. And you know what would be the consequence? You will not only get Gyan, you will also get Vigyan. So this is a special form of attachment which leads to Gyan and Vigyan, which leads to knowledge and realization, which doesn't cover your eyes, but opens up your eyes, opens up your vision. So, whereas material love, when we see how it blinds us. So once this anesthesia of material love, material attachment, kind of, जब भी वो उसको जो भी बोलते हैं, crush बोलते हैं, जो भी बोलते हैं, right? When that anesthesia is removed, then you are face to face with the glaring reality of undue expectations, heartbreaks, insecurity, and fear, and all of those things which we had swept under the carpet in order to pursue unconditional love. But when the anesthesia goes, you feel the pinch and the pain. That's the reality of material love and material attachment, material desires. But spiritual love, spiritual desires, and spiritual attachment, for our good news, don't have these qualities. They have the quality of liberating us. They have the quality of enlightening us. Because our attachment and desires are directed towards an eternal being, towards an unlimited being. The problem is our desires and attachments are directed towards temporary and limited beings and objects, which are limited by time and space, which are limited by their intentions, right? Whereas Krishna or God is unlimited in terms of power, unlimited in terms of love. So when you direct your attachment and love towards God, Krishna, who the word Krishna means all attractive, you will never be disappointed. In fact, that love, that attachment will give you more and more enlightenment, knowledge, and freedom. And that's why this is this chapter and this verse in the Gita is a paradigm shift. So far, the yogi has been asked to stay alone. So far, the yogi has asked to become a recluse. In the 6th chapter, we saw the yogi was always mentioned in singular. But now onwards, you will see that the yogi is supposed to have asakti. The yogi is supposed to be in association with other yogis. So these are things which show us that bhakti is a path which engages human faculties, which engages human desires and attachments rather than denies them. So this is something which is a very profoundly coming in this chapter of the Gita. And henceforth, so we are entering the inner the inner substance of the Gita, the middle heart of the Gita. The first six chapters are the front cover, the last 6 chapters are the back cover. But the heart of the Gita is these 6 chapters. So congratulations to all of us for entering into the heart of the Gita.
And Prabhu, when you talk about entering the heart of the Gita, it's even more exciting as we get into the middle portion of the sandwich, of course. And Prabhu, I've come across this quite often, and for me too personally, you spoke about listening to the desires of the soul, listen to your inner voice. We come across this quite often, but कई बार हमें पता ही नहीं चलता कि जो आवाज आ रही है, what the desires are. You spoke about replacing the loudest desires with the deepest desires. Again, when these deepest desires you talk about, is this the desire of the soul? Yeah, again, this is coming from my mind. How do I distinguish between them? Is there a tool by which you can go by, oh, this is my mind screaming, or this is my soul which is speaking to me? Anything that crosses your mind, or anything you have to say on this problem?
Okay, so spiritual desires are based on spiritual identity, and material desires are based on material identity. So desires are generated based on what you identify with. If you identify as a male, your desires are different. If you identify as female, your desires are different. If you identify as a human, your desires are different. If you identify as a dog, your desires are different. So desires are dependent on the lens from which you view the world, right? And so those desires which are emanating from a material identity, they are material desires. And those desires which are triggered by a spiritual identity, they are spiritual desires. So it's quite distinct. When my desires are for gratification of my mind, senses, and ego, they are material desires. But when my desires are triggered by a spiritual identity of a boundless, timeless Jiva who has boundless, timeless love for the Supreme, those desires to attain that love, to attain that freedom, those desires are spiritual desires. And when we subject our intelligence to the wisdom of the scriptures, when we purify our intelligence, bathe our intelligence in the Ganges of the scriptures, then we can distinguish very easily. So what is the anchor that determines the desire?
Thank you, Prabhu. That makes sense. Moving on to my next question, there is this very common thought that does rounds, even on the internet or some of the famous books, that everything comes from nothing. The source of everything is nothingness. What is your take on this, Prabhu? I mean, I fail to make sense of this line, or I don't know, by my little understanding, how to make sense of this. What is your take on this?
Okay, I'll ask a quiz. So, I am a 7-letter word. Okay? So, I am a 7-lettered word, and it says that dash is greater than God. The poor don't need dash, and if you eat dash, you will die. What is that?
Okay, the poor don't need that.
The poor, no, okay, let me type it out.
Okay, you're a 7-lettered word, that is clear. Okay, dash is greater than God. Oh wow, there are answers already coming. Okay, nice. Okay, there seem to be a few smart guns out there who got the answers even before you type the question. Wow, okay. Now that makes complete sense to me. Okay, now I know where you would be getting to.
So only in English grammar or in English, you could have nothing to be greater than God. In the literal sense, but in the sense of the absolute truth, nothing is greater than God. So everything comes from nothing is an absurd statement, which basically they are, somehow these reductionist scientists, they are so hell-bent, they are so desperate to remove God out of the picture कि मतलब कुछ भी करके निकालो इसको equation से. The cause of all causes, हमको नहीं चाहिए ये 3-lettered word God, God से हमको एलर्जी है. So nothing भी डाला तो भी चलेगा. Everything came from nothing. So much allergy is there that I can replace it with such a illogical, irrational, unscientific term. Nothing भी चलेगा, लेकिन God नहीं चलेगा. So I'll explain to you why what I'm saying. So the thing is that human being has this rational faculty and to be able to ask the question why. Even animals can do it. If you have heard of Ivan Pavlov's, Russian scientist, his experiments with dogs and rats, that he would ring a bell and feed a bread to the dog. So the dog associated in his brain the bell with the bread. So as soon as the bell rang, the dog started salivating. Because cause effect. They see bread as the effect and bell as the cause. So these dogs would go to the bell and just want that his bell rings, because that connection was made. Even dogs, even animals can make the cause-effect connection, but their cause-effect connection just is limited to food. कि यहाँ पे खाना मिलता है तो ये cause है, ये effect है. Because the only effect they are interested in is survival. The only effect they are interested in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So whatever cause facilitates their eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, that is the level of cause, effect, intellect that they can apply. Make sense? Their reasoning is limited to just the boundaries, precincts of eating, sleeping, mating, defending. खाने के लिए, if I do this, I'll get this. If I don't do this, I'll not get this. So it's just a question of survival, that they apply their logical reasoning, or they are given the faculty to apply their logical intelligence just in this confines. Whereas humans have the ability to climb the cause-effect ladder much higher. वो बोलते हैं ना, बाल की खाल निकालते हैं. So that's the humans. They can go drill deeper. अच्छा, इसके पीछे ये है, अच्छा उसके पीछे क्या है, उसके पीछे क्या है. They just want to uncover all the curtains which are hiding the reality. That's why it is called the Discovery Channel. What is the cause? So now this urge, this yearning to find the cause behind these effects has made man to go into the vast, endless skies, space. It has made God to venture into the deepest bottoms of the ocean, isn't it? To find where have we come from? What is the source of life? So this entire exercise was done because man is looking to find the meaning of existence. Right? Make sense? That is the question which motivates, which drives the scientists, the philosophers to give up, to become like madmen, give up their eating and other things, to just ask the question, why? उनके चश्मे के नंबर ऐसे नहीं बढ़ जाते. Because this yearning for meaning is what drives them and makes them climb higher and higher and higher. Cause and effect ladder के ऊपर चढ़ते जाते हैं. They are not satisfied with just intermediate cause or the remote cause. They want to go to the original cause, right? And that is common between science and spirituality. Both are trying to climb the cause-effect ladder, right? But the difference here is that reductionist science, it has eliminated the probability or eliminated the prospect of having a creator in the scheme of things. They have made it an axiom that there cannot be a creator, a designer, a supreme being. And therefore, they are just left with material phenomena to explain the world around us. And because of this obsession of eliminating the supreme being or God out of the picture, what they end up with is that everything, the entire mass that we see, the time, space that we see, began from a sort of nothingness, infinitesimal point with infinite mass and energy compacted together into it, which is called a nothing point, the point of nothingness, infinitesimal point. It doesn't have even any dimensions. मतलब पॉइंट मतलब उसका एक तो कुछ डॉट रहता है, ये ऐसा डॉट है जिसका डॉट का एग्जिस्टेंस भी नहीं है, बट इट एग्जिस्ट्स because then all the existence has to come from it, and because all this time and space and energy has been crammed into this dot of nothingness, it exploded because by nature it has to be unstable because so much mass and energy has been packed into it. God knows from where. Of course, God knows from where means God only knows. But so then it explodes by a big bang some 13.8 billion years ago and creates billions of galaxies. So does it, isn't it a little bit absurd? थोड़ा सा तो मतलब कुछ ईयरी नहीं लग रहा है proposal?
You're being too you're sugarcoating by saying thoda sa absurd to you. It's way more than that. But
okay, चलो ये nothingness से मतलब if we call it in the scientific terms, the universe exploded by chance from a state of nothingness, which is an unimaginably small dot of nothingness. And now the question that arises is, first of all, when you ask them what is this nothingness, they can't explain it. They say it is inexplicable. It is unimaginable. तो हम भी तो वही बोल रहे हैं यार भैया, God is beyond our brain and intelligence to measure. लेकिन नहीं वो नहीं चलेगा, ये nothing चलेगा. The unimaginable nothing, the inexplicable nothing is acceptable, but the unimaginable, inexplicable, achintya God is not acceptable. So you decide which is dogma and which is reason, right? And then अच्छा, okay, nothingness explode होके something आ गया. Even if we assume that from nothing something appeared, but then from nothing for something to appear, there are very, very precise laws of physics, laws of quantum mechanics, with a lot of very precise, delicate constants, the Planck's constant, and so many other constants which are there. In fact, one astronomer has written a book called those 6 constants, which are even one of them you change by a decimal of a decimal of a decimal, the stars won't exist, the life won't exist. तो चलो मान लिया nothing से something आ गया, लेकिन ये laws कौन लेके आया पिक्चर में? Who determines that these laws would act precisely from microcosmic level to the macrocosmic level? Okay, that also is determined by nothing. चलो वो भी मान लेते हैं. मान लो यार जय किशन, don't be so means harsh on them. मान लो चलो nothing से सब कुछ आ गया. Of course God से नहीं आ सकता है because that would be unscientific and religious dogma. But this is definitely not dogma. This is science, not science fiction. Everything can come from nothing, and nothing has very precise mathematical laws of physics, which creates such a complex creation of universe and life within the universe. Don't question that, because that is truth, because that has been given by the most intelligent scientist. Don't bring your intelligence. You are a puny little being. Don't question the intelligence of these scientists who have PhDs and all. Okay, Jai Kishan? Okay, that's not dogma. Okay, then the third thing is कि अभी ये nothing से सब कुछ आ गया. But मेरा एक छोटा सा question है कि where did we begin with this entire yearning and search of discovery?
We started with the mind, right? I mean, you start your inquiry
The search for meaning of life around us, the meaning of this world. मतलब meaning के लिए तो इतना सब मेहनत किया. To search the purpose and meaning of the world around us, the purpose and meaning of our life. But now you are told, after decades of research, spending trillions of dollars, the best of minds and intelligence applied, and they finally call a press conference to tell you that unknown secret. And they announce it, that, we have figured it out. It's not God. The world has come, we finally know, from nothing. So that's the meaning of the world. That's the meaning of existence. The search for the meaning of existence ended up in nothingnessness, in meaninglessness. So search for meaning ended in meaninglessness. There's no meaning to life. There's no meaning to the universe, which leaves you with a very dissatisfied, boring phenomena which just occurred for no reason, for no meaning, no purpose. Which may, मैं कैसे भी करके अपने brain को संतुष्ट कर लूंगा, satisfy कर लूंगा, पर somehow the heart doesn't get appealed by this complete lack of any aesthetic sense for the creation. There's no aesthetic value to creation. There's no aesthetic value to life. It's just nothingness erupting into something by chance. Which, so I would say, it doesn't lead us anywhere. So the point which I am saying is, let us listen, give a chance to the Gita to reveal the truth to us. Because अगर ये साइंस है तो उतना ही साइंस गीता है, और अगर ये गीता डॉगमा है तो उतना ही डॉगमा ये भी है. So what does Krishna say is, भूमिरापो अनलोवायु खम्मनो बुद्धिरेव च अहंकार इत्ययं में भिन्ना प्रकृति अष्टदा अपरे इतस्त्वन्यं प्रकृतिं विद्धि में पराम जीवभूत महाबाहो ययेदं धार्यते jagat. So Krishna is saying that this creation that you see around you is not, on an elemental level you can see atoms, but on a functional level there are these 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Then the 3 subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and ego. These constitute the 8 material elements, functional elements which constitute the creation. And Krishna says above these 8 material elements is the Jiva Bhuta, the living entity, the spiritual soul, which is transcendental, which is unaffected by these material elements, which is just covered by these material elements, but actually is transcendental, and which actually controls these material elements. But then Krishna says, but do you know where did all of this come from? So Krishna says, all of these are my energies. So what Krishna says in the 6th verse, etad yonini bhutani sarvani iti upadharaya aham krishnasya jagata prabhava pralayasthatha. So Krishna is saying all created beings have their source in these 2 natures, the material and the spiritual. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. I am the source and I am the sink. Ultimately, everything comes from me, and everything, finds its resting place in me. So that's another theory, another hypothesis which we could look at. And then Krishna says, sometimes people say, okay, God created everything, maan liya, but then now he is no longer in control. God is dead now because we see the chaos around us. But Krishna says, no, the world cannot exist without my support. In the 7th verse, Krishna says, Matta parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana. That, okay, it's not just that creation karte samay main tha, abhi ye mere control ke bahar chala gaya. Krishna says, no, it is still resting upon me. It is still dependent on me. The entire creation, the universe with all the planets which are floating around in space, they are like pearls which are resting on Krishna. So Krishna is holding everything, Gurutva-karshan. The gravitational pull is being maintained by the invisible hand of Krishna. So all of these, the laws of physics are operating, but the lawmaker is Krishna. The world is resting based on the laws of God. So that's the second thing. God is not just the source and sink, he's also the support of the creation. Then he gives one more deeper aspect in the subsequent verses, where he says, Rasoham apsu kanteya prabhasmi sashishureo pranavasharva vedeshu shabdakhe paurusham nishu. He says, okay, सब मुझसे निकला, सब मुझ पे रेस्ट कर रहा है, but the essence of everything is also coming from me. Without me, those objects, that earth, water, fire, air, ether are meaningless, and they are senseless. So he says, Rasoham apsu kante, the taste of water, the smell, the fragrance of earth, which are the essence of the earth and the water. Krishna says, that is me. If I were not there, the earth would not have any fragrance. I embed the earth with fragrance. That's why you are able to smell the flowers. So therefore, Krishna says, I am not just the source and the sink and the support, but I am also the substance and the essence of creation. And therefore, Krishna says, by knowing the greatness and the sweetness of the Supreme Lord, you can transfer your attachment from the material to the spiritual. Just as a child, when he or she understands that the greatness and the love of his or her parents, his or her attachment, develops towards the parents. So similarly, knowing that Krishna is the source, sink, support, and substance of everything, our heart gets attracted to him, and that attraction and that attachment can liberate us from the blinding and binding love of this world. So that's the picture. Everything came not by chance, but by the Supreme Lord's merciful glance. And that's where lies the beauty of the Vedic understanding of creation. So what do you say, Jai Kishan Prabhu? Did everything come from nothing?
Prabhu, this very line that everything comes from nothing, this made dash sense.
Okay.
Because I can't fit in the word nothing, but because it doesn't make much of sense as how deep the Gita goes into describing the source and sink, the support and the essence of everything, being Lord Krishna himself. Prabhu, my last question before I let you go, and this is a little controversial one. Not
controversial.
That is the beauty of a podcast format, Prabhu, where I am sitting here, you sitting there. ताकि थोड़ा ज़्यादा भी controversial हो तो आप मुझे मारोगे नहीं.
Okay, let it go.
Okay, so Prabhu, we've heard of Khajuraho Temple, very famous temples in MP, and they're famously or infamously adorned with erotic sculptures. Okay, my mind drives me to question that why such a place which is adorned with erotic sculptures, even treated as a temple, as a holy temple, is the word sex that is usually a taboo. Is that something to be worshipped? Are such sculptures to be worshipped? Or what is your take on this?
Okay, so not just the Khajuraho temple in Madhya Pradesh, but even other temples, you will see that there are certain sculptures of nude ladies or some erotic images which might be there. And that intrigues and confuses people often that how come a holy, sanctified temple have these obscene images? This profanity is not kind of syncing with my conception of divinity, right? And that causes a lot of confusion. And so therefore, it's important to understand that the architecture of the temple uh, is very scientifically designed. So basically, the temple is a facsimile or a prototype of the universe. There are 7 gates in the Sri Rangam temple. If you have visited sometime, is the biggest temple with the largest campus in the whole world, where worship is going on. Sri Rangam temple in Tamil Nadu. So it has 7 gates, big, 7 walls actually, 7 walls, and every wall, the compound wall has a big gopuram or a gate. And when you enter inside the gate, you come across another wall and a compound walls and a gate, and you have to cross these 7 layers, and then you come into the Sanctum Sanctorum. Now, what does that represent? That we are currently on the Bhuloka or the planet Earth, which is the dimension of where we stay. But above us, there are 6 other higher planets. The Bhu, Bhuva, Swar, Maha, Jana, Tapa, Satya. And beyond Satya Loka is the Vaikuntha. So therefore, when you cross each of those gates, you are entering into a higher realm of material universe, which has greater intelligence, which has greater facilities for sensory, emotional, and intellectual expression. Like the life on this planet is just 100 years, but the life on the Swarga Loka, our 1 day, our 6 months is equivalent to their 1 day. Our, basically 1 day and 1 night are equivalent for their full, our 1 year is equivalent to their 1 day and 1 night. So they have a much longer, duration of life, and also much better quality of life. But still, even on Swarga Loka, life is Shanabhangur, means life is temporary. And Shine Punya Marte Lokam Vishanti, after their credit balance is over, in their credit card of piety, they also have to fall back to this Bhuloka, right? But the degree of pleasure, extent of pleasure on the Swarga Loka is much higher than our Bhuloka. So therefore, these temples, their architecture represents these 7 levels. As you go higher and higher, you might get higher level of sensual enjoyment. But if you want to get stuck there, looking at those erotic sculptures, you won't be able to evolve into higher level of existence. You would be just stuck with your biology and physiology. But if you want to go beyond your physicality to explore your ultimate spiritual nature, you will have to let go of those temptations. Okay, yes, there is this enjoyment there. It's a kind of a flight simulation. We all know of flight simulation. Before a pilot is given a plane to fly on his own, the pilot is put in a flight simulation machine where the entire experience of flying a plane is given. It seems to him or her that I'm in a plane and it's going at a certain altitude, but they are still on ground in a simulating machine. So similarly, these temples are those simulating machines. Externally, there are these sculptures, but if you really want, if your desire is strong, you won't get distracted by them, but you will go straight into the Sanctum Sanctorum. right? So, and another thing is that the Vedic tradition doesn't deny our biology or our, physical aspect of life. So therefore, on these temples, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, all four are depicted because this is the whole scope of life. Your life is definitely, it's not denying, because this act of intercourse gives birth to life, which is so sacred. So therefore, it is not denied, it is not looked down upon, it is not swept under the carpet prudishly. It is basically presented. Yes, this is also an aspect of life, but there are deeper, more evolved aspects of existence, which they are, the scriptures are recommending us that we should go deeper into those aspects. So, and when you are talking of the temples such as a Khajuraho temple, which have these sculptures, now those archaeologists who have done the complete survey of these temples, they tell us that less than 10% of the sculptures are representing this kama. Rest of the sculptures are representing dharma, artha, the power of a king, the duties of a king, the duties of charity, truthfulness, virtues. All of these virtues are also represented in those sculptures. But if a mind is obsessed with obscenity, all one looks for is obscenity. All one looks for is pornography. Now, 70% of the internet, they say, is full of these things. So people, even if they go to temple, even though it is 10%, they will look for that only. But the Vedic scriptures, they don't live in denial that yes, this is an aspect of life, and this is sacred. And therefore, Krishna says in this chapter of the Gita, dharma aviruddha kamosmi bharatarshava. Oh Arjuna, this act of sex or is not to be looked down upon. But when that copulation is done in with religious principles, with spiritual principles intact, then Krishna says, I personally, you can consider that to be me personally, because Krishna only can give life. Who else can give life? Right? So when procreation, when it's done for the purpose of procreation under the marriage institution, then God personally takes charge of it. It's not a whimsical act of selfish sense enjoyment. It becomes a sacred act of procreation. So therefore, that is something, if you look at the modern society, what it does, it celebrates lust. You see around the billboards, you see everywhere on the TV channels, all they are, again and again bombarding you with is lusty men and lusty women. But traditional societies, they don't celebrate lust, they celebrate life. So that is something which modern society, it glorifies sex and denies life. That's what it does. Contraceptives. It denies life to come into this world. Whereas traditional Vedic society, it denies you sex, but glorifies life. There has to be restraint on sexual activity, because man is not a beast who is just into eating, sleeping, and mating. Man is supposed to uncover and unleash one's higher level of existence, spiritual existence. So therefore, these are two contrasting paradigms. One is celebrating lust and denying life to come into this world. There's abortion, killing of babies, and all of that. Whereas Vedic society, it denies you lust, selfish lust, it denies you, but then it celebrates life. And therefore, you have these 16 samskaras. Out of these 16 samskaras, do you know, Jai Kishan, 14 are for children. Garbhadan samskara, even before procreation, the act of procreation is done, the husband and wife, they make an intention that we want to invite a virtuous soul into this world and give the soul an opportunity to evolve spiritually in this life. So there is this intention made under the direction of the Guru. So that is Garbhadan Samskara. Then in 3 months of pregnancy, there is Pumsavan Samskara. In the 8th month of pregnancy, there is Simantanayan Samskara. Then there is Jata Karma Samskara at the time of birth. Right. Then there is Nishkramanya Samskara. 14 days after birth, the child is taken out into outdoors, into the sun. The first contact with the outside world, which is a celebration. Each of these events which I'm describing is a celebration. Then there is Annaprashan Samskara, Namkaran Samskara after 1 month of birth, which is a celebration. 6 months after birth, there's Annaprashan Samskara. First grain the child is given. That is a celebration. Karna Bedhan Samskara, piercing the ear, which is a celebration. Then Mundana Samskara after 1 year, which is a celebration first. And then there is Chuda Karana Samskara at the age of 3 years. The Shikha is kept. Then there is Vidya Arambha Samskara at the age of 4.5 years, right? Which is another celebration. So what is being celebrated is what happens after procreation. Life. Life is being celebrated. The child is a celebration. And there is investment of love, care, and attention into every detail of the child's growth. Whereas the modern society has shifted its attention and obsession before procreation. The entire obsession with opposite sex and lusting around with multiple partners, with contraceptives, that is what is their absorption. They don't celebrate life, they celebrate lust, which is yielding so many problems in the society, and then it goes on under the name of love. One time a person was sitting with on a date with a girl, and he said that she asked him, so what should we order? So he said, I love fish. So okay, should we order fish then? And the waiter came in and said, wait a minute, sir. What do you mean by I love fish? So the fish has died because of you. It will be cut into pieces and boiled. So do you do this to the person you love? And this girl was looking at him that maybe this is what he's going to do with me, cut me into pieces. And that's what is happening in today's society. And that is passing on and being glorified as love and Valentine and this and that. But while on the contrary, they are taking objection to why is this sculpture there on the temple. And on the other hand, all of this obscenity and all of this, selfishness is passing on in the name of love. So therefore, we need to align ourselves to a higher evolved understanding of life and live a life based on the paradigm of responsibility and service rather than a paradigm of enjoyment and selfishness. Otherwise, we will love people the way, you love to eat fish, or you love to eat, chicken. But then that's not love, sir. You like to do it because it titillates your senses. So similarly, you don't love the other person. You just like because that person can titillate your senses. But that's not the definition of love. Real love is based on a spiritual platform, taking the responsibility of the other person by the institution of marriage, and then celebrating life, not celebrating, as we discussed, what happens before procreation. Okay, so I think we have discussed a lot today.
That made so much sense, and how small-minded, how petty-minded it would be of us if we just judge the beauty of a temple or the architecture of a temple just by a few erotic sculptures. And by what explanation you gave us, if any one of us were to visit the Khajuraho temple, not listening to this explanation, it would deny us the opportunity to appreciate the Vedic wisdom that goes behind constructing a temple and the deeper science behind that. So really, Prabhu, thank you for that. That was a very powerful point you made, and I can even see the comment section. It's Nehaji is she loved the explanation that you gave, and this should maybe be forwarded to with MP Tourism Department. We should work on that too. So thank you for that. Okay. If there are any questions, they can be taken up.
Okay, so there are two questions. One I see on Facebook. Our dear friend Sandesh has this like a comment actually, which I think is very pertinent. He says that to be fair to Big Bang theorists, they don't really theorize that universe comes from nothing, but that the universe very quickly expanded from a point. Now, the point itself is not dimensionless per se to be equated to nothing. Sure, there are still aspects of that theory that still don't sound very convincing, but nowhere does Big Bang theorists say that a universe came from nothing. Just a heads up, because this position of devotees often makes us appear not fully aware of what the theories truly mean, making the scientific community make us take less seriously. So, point well taken, Sandesh Prabhu. They say that universe came from a point which is not dimensionless. So, okay, we are taking a step back. The point, the universe came from a point of some dimension. Where did it get its dimension from? So then we will have to explain that to us. And again, you only are saying that this theory still doesn't sound convincing, because who set those laws into motion, and why did it in first place expand from that point, or who brought that point in the first place? So these are still inexplicable. So I'm saying that if you can put faith in that, why can't you take that leap of faith that the universe came from God? Because one is ultimately giving you an unaesthetic, meaningless conception of the world around you, which will ultimately lead to anarchy, which will lead to selfishness. Whereas the other explanation will give rise to qualities of virtuous qualities, and which will give you meaning and purpose in life, which will enhance the quality of your experience in life. So the choice is ours, because faith, there's no denial that we are putting in both of these. The scientist is also beginning with an axiom of faith, and the spiritualists also have to begin with an axiom of faith. So which faith do you put, hinge your, yourself on? That's the only question. So the choice is yours. Okay, and then there's this question about something. The movie Sound of Music, Julie Andrews say nothing comes from nothing, nothing ever could. So I have not seen the movie, neither do I intend to. But yeah, so I think well said. Nothing can come from nothing. That seems to be a perfect statement. So I guess thank you all for joining. We can conclude our discussion here. So 7th chapter is halfway through. We have just discussed 12 verses. There are 18 more verses to go, and there's a lot of exciting discoveries to be unpacked.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you for this wonderful session. And see you all, and see you, Prabhuji, next week. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.